So today we're going to be talking about cultural psychosis, which is a symptom of the internet. So in modern times, the internet's given people a platform where they can now communicate directly as significant influencers in a space that has exposure. Never before in history have we seen people be able to commit to their views with the shielding of a computer or the internet. And this has created a phenomena where like-minded people share alternative theories. It stems from a misunderstanding of history and not being able to educate themselves on reality. People like to feel important and retain some sort of control over the world that they live in. The internet has inflated people's sense of self, ego and prestige, so that everybody feels to some degree famous. We find ourselves at a unique time in history where for the first time global events or things occur that need to be explained immediately. Because we have been seeing the world through a digital perspective, such as a phone, and we have an overflow of information, people have become deluded into the sense where they are part of the upper scale echelons of the world. People can independently go and search on the internet and find their own theories for events that are happening around the world. And this has created this phenomenon of cultural psychosis, which is a symptom of the internet. So social media has further been prevalent in the deterioration of the younger generation's common intellect and awareness, where alternative theories now have a platform and are being circulated. It's highly influential and it's acting in a similar way to, you could say, a cult or religion, whereas the foundations of this cultural psychosis phenomenon could be potentially the beginning of some new form of religion in a few hundred years. It has the same fundamentals of religion. Create a common enemy, you create a good versus evil fight. There could be some form of religion or folklore that develops from this in the future, sort of the fight against the establishment. And I think at the core of it, that's what brings people together who want to feel important and want to be recognised. They want to join this fight of good versus evil, to belong. And when they find other like-minded people, it spreads. It's quite an efficient way of creating this unified belief. Now, this belief here that I've called cultural psychosis, it's a very dangerous form of belief, and it could even potentially be a psyop from anti-Western countries, so historical rivals of, say, the English Empire or USA, anti-colonisation. So this is the iceberg of cultural psychosis, a symptom of the internet. And I haven't written it here, but this leads to generally 3 outcomes if you reach the abyss. So school shooters, domestic terrorists, people that assassinate other people, suicide and psychosis, so mental illness. That is where this current form of this iceberg leads to. The person who killed John Lennon, funnily enough, wanted to seek attention and to be famous. And I think that also falls into this too, where you can't control something in culture, therefore you kill somebody. On the top level of this iceberg, you have the Epstein files. So the whole philosophy of this cultural psychosis is people want to appear smart, they want to appear important and educate others, but they have no grasp of reality, geography, where countries are on a map, or history. And that's what actually is prevalent in these people joining this cult. They don't understand the makeup of the world, and they can no longer distinguish reality from fiction because they have no understanding of modern history. When someone's educated in modern history, they can therefore grasp current events and understand things that are occurring in real life and be at peace with that. But when we have this lapse in our society where people don't understand events of the last 200 years, they are not able to comprehend simple events like a rocket taking off or a terrorist attack, that there are planets in the universe. The fact that space is so vast and so huge and the Earth is insignificant and therefore we are insignificant, and the whole society structure of wealth and the pyramid structure breaks down because none of that even matters. So therefore people feel like they lose control if space is real, or if there are other planets and places in the universe. They can't comprehend that because they lack an education. Therefore, they cement themselves in these beliefs where they can form a square and explain everything to retain some sort of control and ego. It does stem from cultural hubris, kind of like a anti-society movement. But again, this leads to domestic terrorism, suicide, or psychosis in most cases. So we should educate people about the cultural psychosis phenomenon of the internet and why it's bad. So the internet's only really been prevalent for myself since 2005 or something. So we haven't really had a chance to survey people and see the long-term mental effects of freedom of information, of any sort of like spectrum of theory being thrown around. Therefore, we're yet to identify the dangers of the internet in this sort of cultural phenomenal way where it creates a collective of people that, go into a bank and shoot people dead, colleagues, and you say, why did he do that? Well, this is why they did it, because they're into stuff on the internet and they're into these alternate theories where they begin to see corporations, wealth, people who work as, enemies of the society because they'll believe in an Illuminati or something wild like that. Another element of this cultural psychosis is there are a lot of people involved in this who do not actually believe this stuff. It comes from a childlike attention-seeking behaviour where you want to impress people or feel important or have some sort of power over your peers. Leverage. The Epstein files are a classic example of that, where anything that occurs in the world, you will have half of the comments saying that's the Epstein files. It is a form of leverage because there's no finality and it is something that's kept slightly in secret. Therefore, it's perfect leverage for the cultural psychosis cult because they can just use the Epstein files, hide behind a keyboard and say that in context of anything that occurs in the world. That's why I added in that cheeky little, the Epstein files are fake. It just goes around in a circle to the point of no end. Or the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs was because of the Epstein files. That's an example of, you could say anything was because of the Epstein files. So there are a couple of cheeky ones that I've put into this, so we'll break this down from level 1. So AI wants to destroy humans. That's probably a common belief along a lot of people that are not heavily indoctrinated into this. These are the grooming phases of this iceberg. Trump is in the Epstein files would be the main one that hooks people into this side. Israel controls America. Again, that's something that's kind of attractive. If you're a young person and you read that, you're vulnerable to being pulled into this. So the Great Reset, one world government. The Earth is flat. Level 2, shallow waters. The war in Iran is because of the Epstein files. Artemis space program is because of the Epstein files. 9/11 was faked. The Apollo missions were faked. The Holocaust is fake. So level 3, below the surface. This is more historical revisionism and self-serving fringe narratives. So JFK was assassinated by Mossad. Pearl Harbor was fake or was a false flag operation. JFK was actually a Mossad agent. So again, with these theories, you'll never find any actual debate or logic or technical talk about the topics. It's just these one-liners. The Great Reset, man. AI is going to destroy humans. Oh, the Holocaust was faked. 9/11 was fake, bro. So these are all personality disorders, symptoms of the internet, where either the person does believe this and they're psychotic and deluded, or they don't actually believe this and they just want to feel superior to everybody. It's like a shield where no matter what topic's brought up or no matter what occurs in the world, you can fall back onto one of these things. Oh, space isn't real, bro. And all of a sudden you're controlling the frame of the conversation. So there is no proof World War II ever happened. Well, with this one, you'll hear people say very vague things like, hey, if you look at history, how do we know that things happened unless we were there? So space isn't real. That's similar to the Epstein files where the perpetrator knows that you can't actually prove space is real. It's a very coercive, benign type of tactic. A lot of this stuff is similar to like a malignant narcissistic personality disorder, where people are using leverage that they know you're emotionally attached or invested in to try to control you or to insult you. So space exploration and rockets and Apollo, it's the one thing that unifies the human race. It's the one thing that sparks humans' imaginations. It's the one thing we'll never have an outcome from in our lifetimes. And so many people are so into that and imaginative about that. Like Star Wars, we're just so fascinated about the universe, and then someone can just break that down and destroy you by saying space isn't real or the earth is flat. And it works similar to religion, where you have preachers at the top, or like the Manson cult, and they will shed these beliefs onto their followers for their own ego, to control people for sex or power. So it works in that similar way, where you have people who think that they're like imams of this cultural psychotic theory. So it's very cult-like. So now we go into the deeper waters, and I've met people who are sane, but they will just say this stuff casually. Like you'll say, oh, the rocket's taken off, and they'll go, oh, you know that they've got cloning centres underground and that there's lizards. It's a tough one, because you know that there's no way that they believe that. But when somebody believes this, they are highly sick. So celebrity cloning technology, there's a whole stream on the internet. I forget his name, Donald somebody. And I researched that too for fun. And this guy reckons that he wrote these Metallica songs, and he's been cloned by the Illuminati, and he's seen these cloning chambers. Crazy shit. So the royal family are lizards. Now, who is David Icke? Because he promotes a lot of this and he doesn't look insane. So I don't know if people like David Icke are actually plants from communist nations and people against Western society, sort of put there to disrupt the cohesion of Western society. It's interesting, eh? We could do a whole nother video about that itself. So the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs was because of the Epstein files. That's just something I threw in there that you could easily say, well, the Epstein files is because of this. The Epstein files, when people talk about the Epstein files in comments, they actually don't understand or know anything, just like none of us do. It's just leverage. So Jeffrey Epstein's in the Epstein files. The level 5, the abyss, the Epstein files are fake. So we've got the internet is fake. Now the earth is fake and the universe don't exist. You know, the earth is fake and the universe doesn't exist. These feed into space isn't real and the earth is flat. So the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to tell reality from illusion. So question everything, think for yourself, because in the age of the internet, you have cultural ego involved. You have people higher up in these movements who are getting off on coercion and control, just like any other religion or anything like that. So there's motives in play for attention-seeking behaviour for people who are lonely, to sort of find followers, very much like a Charles Manson cult. So where does this lead? This is an inside weapon against Western civilization, or even just the entire world. This is disorder, this is chaos, this promotes, I can see this promoting terrorism essentially. If somebody was indoctrinated from level 1 up here about AI and Israel, and they go into everything's because of the Epstein files, they're pulled into the conspiracy, 9/11 was fake, Pearl Harbor was fake, Holocaust is fake, Apollo missions were fake. By that time, they're against governments. JFK, there's no proof World War II happened, they're entering psychosis. And then the deep waters, they're completely gone. They're into lizards and cloning technology. But funnily enough, the people I've met, they'll stay on the surface kind of level, but there are some people that just dip in between these things. I usually think that I surround myself with pleasant people who are sound of mind, but it does make you question what people's motives are and who they actually are when they touch on some of these things. The medieval people who studied the moon and that in Italy and that, they would be so sickened by what human race are doing with the internet. Like, this is anti-science, anti-exploration, anti-culture, anti-order. But realistically, nobody knows for sure what's going on in the world, right? So we don't have control of the world because we're not king of the world. This is cultural psychosis. It's developed from the internet being around for 15 years. These modern theories, and they've given platforms to these people on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube that preach things like this in a sinister way, all for their own ego, or to get followers. They know people are sort of mentally weak, so they prey on people to try to spark some sort of creative enlightenment in people who want to feel a purpose and want to regain control of the world they live in. But if you study history, it's liberating to understand the world that was before. And once you understand the world that was before, you can be at peace and look for patterns in humans and wars and things that occurred with space travel, exploration, culture, politics, communism and democracy. That stuff's still happening in South Korea, Japan, North Korea and China. These Cold War situations still exist in the world, and it can all just be explained by political different opinions and the way that society is founded off these political and societal sort of codes that are formed. That seems to be all there is to it. The Earth is quite small. It's just people. We're all humans. And when we go to space, then we will take the next step in evolution, beyond religion, beyond what we conceive to be on the planet. And in a way, that is healing of the human race and taking humans to the next evolutionary level. So this rhetoric is against evolution. Thank you for taking the time. Question everything, think for yourself, and the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to tell reality from illusion.